Losing my grandmother was literally one of the hardest loss that I've ever experienced in my entire life, but I didn't even know that until I probably was somewhere between like 18 and 25. So imagine that you are simply living your life not realizing that one of your largest loss happened at the age of 9, before you really understood the concept of what a major loss felt like, before you really understood what it meant to not have someone in your world anymore, before you were really able to wrap your head around what exactly just happened. I lost my best friend before I even understood friendship. I lost my best friend before I even understood what losing anything really meant. My grandmother was a peculiar woman in that she did not graduate from high school. However, she was an entrepreneur at her core. She had multiple businesses. She had multiple properties. In some kind of way, she became the pillar in the community, whether her physical neighborhood community or in her church community or anyone else that came into her path. And oftentimes I wonder what that must have felt like to carry that load on her shoulders all the time. I often wonder what our conversations might have been like if I would have just had her a little bit longer to even make it to, like, I don't know, high school or college. I was so young, I didn't understand the jewel that I had sitting right at my fingertips. I didn't really understand the blessing that she had been to so many other people until I honestly, maybe until the last couple of years. It probably, I really wrapped my head around the magnitude of what that meant versus just saying it and moving along. Interesting fact, when my mother initially adopted me, um, my grandmother was not thrilled. And not because she wasn't thrilled about me, it was the concept of my mama being the responsible party for me, when in my grandmother's eyes, this child ain't ready for no child. Please note that my mama was like 40, somewhere between 42 and 45 when she adopted me. So she was not a child. But I think that was my grandmother's reservation initially. In addition to that, I had someone else that was my like daily caregiver, and then my grandmother got jealous a little bit, and then I became the apple of her eye. Okay, becoming the apple of her eye was probably the beginning of the blessings for me that I didn't know would come. And in addition to that, I know that her prayers are the ones that's keeping me going right now. Um, my grandmother was a jewel to my mama. So my mom is actually not my grandmother's child. Um, in a way, my mother was adopted. So my grandmother was actually my mother's father's sister. She did not have children, and my mother had 11 siblings. There are 12 of them total, and she begged to go back with my grandmother to the city because they lived in the country. My grandmother took her. My grandmother was responsible for her. This was before DSS paperwork and all that kind of stuff. So my mama went to school with my grandma. My grandma technically raised my mom. She paid cash for my mom to go to college. My grandmother had a hair school. She also had a beauty shop after that. And then she had a like corner store or whatever and a meat market. Like she sliced meat, like pork chops, sausage, sandwich meat, stuff like that. So my girl been a hustler now. Yeah. Do not play with Louise, okay? Anyways, um, she was the person that was always willing to help somebody. She was the person that was always involved in whatever would help someone. Um, they tell me that my grandmama used to be a firecracker. I didn't know that version of her. When I met her, she was very much so deeply rooted in church, pastors, aid board, missionaries. When preachers come to town, she is on that committee that's helping them make sure everything is together. Whatever the pastor needs, she is supporting them. And it was just like a blessing in a certain way to like see her be a blessing to other people. Again, I didn't understand that at 9, but I do understand it a lot now. My grandmother unfortunately had like a massive stroke when I was like 8, and it took a toll on her in a lot of different ways, but she ended up being bedridden and unable to talk. And she was in like a rehab center for an extended period of time. And then there was nothing else that they could do. She wasn't really making any additional progress. And they decided, well, she could just go home. The doctor gave her, I think it was like somewhere between 3 to 6 months. She lived 18. So that's how you know my dog been really a strong fighter. Okay. It did not come easy for my mom and I. We were literally our own support system, and then our community rallied around us, and did everything they could. Like, even for me, remember, I'm a kid, so people would like literally come get me and ensure that I have like the most amazing day. People would come to sit with my grandmother and do whatever my grandmother needed to give my mama a break, to let my mama take a nap, or people would cook for us. People would come clean for us. And I think that that was an extension of how my grandmother showed up for other people. And when the day that my grandmother passed away, I kind of knew what was going on, but I didn't say anything to anybody else. Like, I've always had an old soul, so I'm aware. I know what's going on. Y'all are getting me out of here. Y'all want me to go play. Y'all want me to go do this and that. I could see the funeral car outside. I know what that means. I've been to a lot of these funerals, so I'm not oblivious. I appreciate them like handling me so delicately. I did not lose it. Then, if I'm being honest, like, I feel like my official breakdown was at the funeral. That probably was the first time that I actually had like that emotional moment of just crying and losing it. And then after that, I feel like I was grieving, but I didn't understand what grief was. And that's the other thing. I lost my best friend, and I didn't even know what grieving was for real. I had a couple of months ago lost what I would consider my other grandma. And I think what unfortunately happened is, once I lost my second grandma, that's when I started to realize what losing your grandmother felt like. And it really wasn't until special moments started to happen for me, or like that summer, because I would spend time with both of them during the summer. I didn't have that option. Whenever I had a break from school, I may spend time with them. I didn't have that option. Holidays, I didn't see them. And then it was just kind of like that experience of starting to miss someone that you no longer have access to. But imagine wrapping your head around that at 10 and 11 and 12. And by the time I got to high school, I started to realize, like, wow, I'm adopted. And I've lost people that, like, I just feel like they were supposed to be here. And it's frustrating because you, as you grow, you learn, you understand that people won't be here forever. And whatever illness they may have had, or whatever ailments they may have been experiencing, it is so selfish to want them to be present in that state than to have them with God, right? Understood. So by the time I got to high school graduation, I think that's when it like hit me in a different way. And then college graduation, it hits you again. And then you move away. You want to share every exciting moment. Hey, like the day I got my scholarship, the days I got dressed for prom, graduation, some kind of award that I got. My senior year after graduating from high school, I actually won the oratorical contest. And that might not seem like a lot to a lot of y'all, but like my grandma used to have me at them oratorical contests, baby, for the Baptist Association in Charleston. And then my wedding is where it started to hit me again that Louise and Viola was not going to be there. And it's that like, it was that constant reminder that, oh my gosh, my girls ain't going to be here. My best friends are gone. In addition to that, you begin to observe the people around you continue to nurture relationships with their grandmothers, or maybe not. And it triggers you so differently. I didn't realize how much of a trigger it was until my husband's grandmother passed away, because it was almost like it opened up, it ripped the band-aid off a healed wound, scabs included. And it was just so difficult because I had to support him through that traumatic experience, knowing what it feels like on the other side. Um, and it was just sad and it's heartbreaking. And so every time I hear that someone has lost their grandma, it breaks my heart because I know what that journey looks like. In addition to that, every time I hear somebody saying their grandmama is their best friend, they love their grandmama, or the fact that they can talk to their grandmama, I smile because it reminds me that my grandma was my girl, or my grandmas were my girls. So if you're struggling with grief of losing someone very close to you, or if you're struggling with accepting the fact that you will lose them one day, or if you've experienced a loss a long time ago and it's something that you have not learned to cope with, I hope that this encourages you to just be encouraged by the experience that you did have with them, be encouraged that you did everything you were supposed to do, and be encouraged that the angels that watch over you are still protecting you. And the prayers of them grandmamas is what's keeping me day after day. And I thank y'all so much.